With the Ferrari SF-25, another step forward is needed in Formula One. The Maranello team arrives at the Miami International Autodrome in Florida, USA, with a lot of hope and confidence in their abilities for the sixth round of the 2025 Formula One Championship. It is a weekend we could define as transitional, while hopefully waiting for the aerodynamic package which is set to be introduced in the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix weekend in Italy. An update for Imola which includes the first real modifications to address the issues of the SF-25 that have emerged in these first 2 months. In the meantime, in Florida, the Italian side must give its best. The goal is to optimize the result once again, and if possible, do so with both Ferrari drivers. Looking at the bigger picture, the American track should suit the characteristics of the Italian car. Last year, Charles Leclerc reached the podium. The pace was not far from Lando Norris's McLaren, which won and changed the championship. In terms of pure performance, the prancing horse lost pole position by a small margin. We remember how the chosen setup showed a good compromise between high-speed and low-speed corners and long straights. However, the current Ferrari is a bit different. First of all, it has a smaller setup window, which will not make it easy to build a good race weekend. Another important element concerns balance in a single lap, where the SF-25 shows marked understeer, a characteristic we have highlighted since the pre-season testing session at the Bahrain International Circuit. This feature of the car's drivability has significantly limited the driver's feeling. We have seen this clearly in the first 5 rounds of the 2025 Formula One season. But what is the source of this limitation, which has been forcing both drivers to adapt their driving styles? First, let's analyze the presumed causes of the pull rod layout. Charles Leclerc prefers a very precise front end and suffers from this lack of rotation. However, between the two Ferrari drivers, the Monegasque has adapted much better for now. The understeer has several origins. On the suspension side, we absolutely cannot blame the new pull rod layout. Rather, we need to talk about the arrangement of the arms that, while determining much of the front dynamics, are linked to the rear end in their operation. The two axes cannot be considered separately, as they are closely connected to each other. Nonetheless, it is not the pull rod layout itself that causes the difficulties mentioned. In general, we can hypothesize a lack of front grip. This results in a more rearward balance, and as a consequence, makes it difficult for the car to rotate. In other words, it is as if the maximum available front grip is too reduced. During cornering, the load on the tires is combined. For this reason, we have a longitudinal load percentage for braking the car and a lateral load percentage for pushing the car toward the asphalt. The maximum grip must contain both of these contributions. If it doesn't, it is quite obvious that the performance won't meet expectations, and the Ferrari car cannot fully exploit its potential. From an aerodynamic perspective, the issue is different. The greatest deficit does not come from the front section of the floor. We can therefore exclude inconsistencies regarding the loading level from this part of the car, which seems to be working closer to the expected load values. The problem, unfortunately, seems to stem once again from the ride heights. Although much reduced compared to the past, it should be noted that the current Formula One cars have a certain degree of rake. The area closest to the ground is the T-tray, which essentially skims the track surface. In this zone, all teams work to reduce skid wear and extract a lot of performance. Ferrari is forced to slightly increase the ride height, and, as a direct consequence, the floor cannot generate the downforce needed on the front end of the Italian car. When a floor does not work at the correct ride heights, the problem also affects the rear end at certain speeds. But as mentioned, it also impacts the front end in a broader spectrum. In other words, by raising the car, the lost load is not the same between the front and rear, and proportionally, the Ferrari suffers a more significant imbalance on the front end, a lack of load in certain areas that makes it ineffective. The Ferrari technicians and engineers are working on suspension adjustments in order to optimize the SF-25's performance, as not all of the understeer can be attributed to this issue. During the qualifying session at the Jeddah circuit in Saudi Arabia, for example, Ferrari lost a lot of ground in the first 3 slow corners because the front tires had not been activated yet. The Italian team studied the car extensively ahead of the Miami Grand Prix weekend, and the decision not to bring aerodynamic updates is mainly related to the sprint weekend format. Giving up the possible support of aerodynamic updates should not be seen as a move of surrender. On the contrary, the Maranello team will have the opportunity to study the car again, focusing on runs with more fuel on board, but also in terms of qualifying performance thanks to the double session that will take place. The compromise in setup aims to optimize single-lap performance. This has been discussed by everyone in the last few weeks, including Ferrari team principal Frédéric Vasseur. There is a step missing in this regard that the historic Italian team wants to achieve as soon as possible to be able to challenge McLaren for race victories. In order to do so, they need a more neutral balance, eliminating the understeer to give more confidence to the drivers and push the car to the maximum. There should therefore be some changes in suspension settings to stabilize the aerodynamic platform. We eagerly await to see what will happen this weekend in Florida. Formula One is therefore embarking on the first of 3 trips to the United States this year for the 6th round of the season, the Miami Grand Prix at the Miami International Autodrome. It is the second Grand Prix to be run to the sprint format in 2025, with just one free practice session on Friday, 6 weeks after the first of the year in China had seemingly provided early liftoff for both Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari career and the Italian team's season. It may not have been a full Grand Prix, but the 7-time Formula One champion's pole position and impressive win in the 19-lap race at the Shanghai International Circuit appeared significant at that moment, taking into consideration the fact that it came at the start of just his second race weekend with the Maranello team and after what had been a tricky debut at the Albert Park Circuit in Australia. The Miami International Autodrome is 5.412 kilometers long, featuring 19 corners and runs around the Hard Rock Stadium. It boasts a mix of high-speed and more technical sections, with several overtaking opportunities, especially down the straights with DRS zones, between turns 8 and 11 and 16 to 17. The layout requires a compromise between low aerodynamic downforce for the straights and good stability through the slower corners. Pirelli is bringing the same 3 compounds used a fortnight ago in Jeddah. The C3 as hard, the C4 as medium, and the C5 as soft, which equates to 1 step softer than last year. The track surface is very smooth and subjects the tires to medium to low longitudinal and lateral forces. But the very hot weather which last year saw track temperature reach the 55 degrees Celsius mark means that thermal degradation will play an important role. The track tends to rubber in rapidly over the course of the weekend, leading to a steady increase in grip levels. Apart from the various technical details, the Miami weekend marks 1 year since HP joined Ferrari as title partner. In celebration, the 2 SF-25 cars will take to the track with a special livery revealed this afternoon in Miami by drivers Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, along with team principal Frédéric Vasseur, who unveiled a banner on which fans have left messages as part of an HP Messages of Forza initiative to mark the first year of its partnership with the Italian side.